You're listening to the Game of Inches podcast, powered by Mayflower Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Jacob Smith and Andrew McGinnis.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Game of Inches podcast. Super excited for this episode. I feel like we're always excited, but this time it is the Super Bowl special. I think we've done a pretty good job of breaking down a lot of the games, giving our opinions, some hot takes here and there. But we are finally at the big game. It's been a week to kind of get hyped up for it. Nobody really wanted to watch the Pro Bowl for obvious reasons. We're pumped up, though. We're looking forward to breaking it down. We got some different prop stuff, some betting things. We're going to talk about the storylines for both teams, all that good stuff. Before we start this podcast, I got to tip my hat to my fellow co-host. Jake stepped in front and said, hey, the Bengals are going to win that game, and they did. They are in the big game. So good call to you, Jake.
Yeah, I'm not really going to take that because I pussied out at the end and I took the Rams, I think. So I will say that I said they were going to win, but wasn't willing to put my own money on it. But now it was talk about being able to see the future. You were able to call that Chiefs first half, and then they capitulated in the second half. So I guess we were both right. We both had a little bit of a nice win there, but unfortunately I didn't bet mine.
Hey, it doesn't matter. It's all about the predictions. It's all about the predictions. And we got it on record anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But Money McPherson, man, he's making a name for himself as well. Young guy. You and I both watched the McAfee show. I think you and Ox have kind of gotten me on the McAfee show a lot more watching that. But I watched his interview with Pat McAfee, and that got me super excited, just like seeing the kind of guy he is. Also just super confident guy, but very fitting, that he's able to kick that field goal. They get a stop, not only a stop, but an interception, to get the ball back. People thought the second that the Chiefs won the coin toss, the game was over. Everybody, yeah. And pretty crazy, and it lands on Evan McPherson's foot, and he kicks it and sends them to the big game. So that was super exciting. But just your overall thoughts, I guess, Jake, on both these two teams, their journey to getting here.
Old boy Shooter McPherson, man, what a guy! How can you not root for him? Obviously, watching him on McAfee, he's got nothing but confidence. He oozes confidence, and he's very well prepared. It seems like he doesn't take his job lightly. He understands that he is a crucial part to his team, and that field goal kicking does matter, and good field goal kickers usually last a long time in the NFL. So he's somebody I really, really like to watch. Joe Burrow, obviously, is Joe Burrow. But a big guy, I think, for the game against the Chiefs that kind of picked it up in the second half, that maybe had a slow start in the first half. And I think it goes hand in hand with why they had a slow start. I think Joe Mixon's probably the most important part of their offense. I know Jamar Chase gets a lot of accolades and he gets a lot of respect, rightfully so, for the season that he's had. But when Joe Mixon's ticking, the Bengals offense is ticking. And I noticed that in the second half, once the ball started being able to get ran a little bit more, they had a little bit more confidence in it, and Joe really started to take over the game a little bit, and Cincinnati came out on top. But overall, man, I know we've talked about it before, but this might be like the craziest playoff in history. Like, every game has been unreal to watch so far. Like, obviously there was a couple blowouts in wild card weekend, but after that, man, all the games have just been unreal.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. Like, Super Wildcard Weekend was, I think there was one close game, and then it was the rest blowouts. But like you said, since then, everything's been decided within one score, within one field goal. I think that a lot of people look at how teams got here, the teams they faced, and the different storylines. But I think you can look at both teams. I mean, you can find ways to find pros and cons for both teams. A lot of people, from what I've heard, the disrespect that I'm seeing against this Bengals team, talking about how poorly Tennessee played and certain things that the Chiefs did, that it was a Chiefs choke job. I just want to go on record and say I hate when people don't give respect to the team that comes back and they just got to, crap on the team that lost the lead. I don't want to hear about that. Let's talk about second half adjustments from the defense of the Bengals. It looked like they got a brand new defense at the store and it came out and put them on there. because the guys that were out there in the first half, Jake, they weren't getting the job done. Obviously, what was said in the film or whatever they did in that locker room, they were able to turn things around. So I think that there has to be so much credit given to the Bengals all around, not just Burrow, not just one or two players. I think that, and there's also so much youth on the team, which makes it so exciting because I think we can both agree this game is a little bit of youth versus experience. As far as the coaching goes, running backs, as far as the quarterback goes, it really is kind of a game of young guys versus the experienced guys.
Yeah, both teams have their own story. I think the Rams obviously are flying a little bit under the radar in our minds, I think, in terms of us talking about them because everybody's so caught up, I think, our age in what's going on with Joe Burrow and the Bengals, just because we've never seen it before, right? And we're so enthralled just with his personality. We know it's the end of an era with Tom Brady. Like, we're looking for that next guy, and every sign seems like it's going to be him. But to talk about the Rams for a minute, I think the Rams have equally overcome a lot this season. There was a lot of people at the start of the season that said the Detroit Lions somehow won that trade by being able to offload Matt Stafford and what they got back in returns for picks and stuff. But the Rams are really locked in, getting OBJ, McVay really trusting OBJ, getting him the ball, making sure he understands that he is a part of the team's success. There's a lot to hang your hat on with the Rams, I think. I think the Rams have shown that they've had ups and downs this season. Coming into the playoffs, there was a lot of questions over Stafford, his play, his lack of ball security. And coming into the playoffs, that was another, more questions were being asked about how far the Rams are going to be able to go with a guy like Stafford and how he's been playing. And I think Stafford's been pretty lights out since the playoffs have started. So I think the Rams, equally as the Bengals, have an interesting story. And I think it's going to be a really good game for different reasons, right? The Rams they're back, right? They lost their first Super Bowl that they were there with McVay. Very crappy game. You lose to the GOAT. It's just, it wasn't a pleasant experience for them. It was a very surreal experience to go up against a team like New England and them lose, by such a low margin of score for both teams. And they're back. It's the redemption shot. They've mortgaged the future. They have no more first round picks, I think, for the next 5 years. So they're really all in right now and they're invested. And then you have the Bengals, who are the young guys. They probably don't even understand the moment. There might be guys, they would never admit it, but that are in the locker room that are like, shit, I made it to a Super Bowl after 3 years. I'll definitely be back here. I'm not super worried about whether we win or lose because they've never been there before. They don't have any experience to draw on. So both teams, I think, are going to be coming in looking to prove a point, and I think it should be an awesome game.
Well, I love that point you make about the draft picks being all in, the storyline, and kind of adding on to what I was saying about the experience there, because it's a good point to raise. I mean, if the Bengals don't win this game, the future is still super bright for them. And I'm not saying that, everything's going to go downhill for the LA Rams, but there's a lot more at stake. It's kind of like, when you make the moves and you gather the team together and you've got McVay back in his redemption spot, like you said. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, though, there's a couple different coaches will think one way and some will think the other way. But I've been listening to stuff on Media Row in LA all week long. It's been really fun to follow. Some players have gone on radio shows and said, well, you can't think of it as the Super Bowl's next week. It's just a game. You're playing a road game and you got to just go win. Don't get yourself too hyped up. And that's what I think the message will be for the Bengals. But I truthfully think for the Rams, there's no way they could be thinking like that. They're playing at home. They've got the redemption for their coach. They've got an experienced core. They've got a great pass rush. They've got so much going for them. And it's a good point you raise about us, being younger, seeing Burrow in the locker room doing his dance and smoking the cigars. It's funny. He looks cool doing it. They got a lot of young guys on the Bengals. I want to bring up the fact that people talking about the defense for the Rams and how much credit they've gotten. Let's not forget what happened against the Buccaneers. I mean, we can't really just forget about that second half collapse, that if it didn't come down to back-to-back tosses to Cooper Kupp, who knows what happens in that game in general. So I don't know. I don't think that either team is going to have, the ability to just slow each other down. I think it's going to be. Let's jump right into it. I guess I'm kind of working my way into it here, but predictions for the side in total, betting wise or just the game in general. I think we're going to see points, Jake. I really think we're going to see points. Super Bowls historically, if you look back at a large scale, low scoring, but especially low scoring first halves, I think both these teams get together and trade points. And one thing that I look at is that people think that field goals can't help you get a high scoring game, or if you're betting, they can't help you get an over. Couldn't disagree with that more. Field goals are still points. Punting is not a point. Going forward on fourth down and not getting it does not help. So we can think back to that Chiefs and Chargers game, a couple months ago, how many points the Chargers could have had if they went for a field goal instead of going for it. So to me, I expect points in this game. I think that both teams have so much talent offensively, quarterbacks that can throw it. So as far as the game script goes, we saw the total go from 51.5 all the way down to 48.5. I think we're going to see some points in this game.
Yeah, and you mentioned too the field goals. Obviously, a big thing that the talking point from the Chiefs game with the Bengals was that they didn't go for it at the end of this first half there, and they decided they didn't kick the field goal. They decided to go for it, and they got stopped on the 1 yard line, and ultimately, game ends up going to overtime. They lose. That was a really big talking point of why the Chiefs didn't kick the field goal, and I think the Bengals are a perfect example of how field goals lead to wins and points. They definitely have shown Evan McPherson can get out there and kick the ball and I don't think he's missed yet this playoff, has he? I think he's perfect. Yeah. So he just goes to show they have the ultimate trust in their kicker. And ultimately I think he has the most points on their team so far through this playoff run too. And he's chasing down Adam Vinatieri for the most points and most kicks, are successful kicks ever in a single playoff. And he's a rookie. So it just goes to show field goal kicking does matter. And I have a tough time with the totals, right? I'm always a pessimist, right? So I'm going to see one side, but I'm always going to see the other side too. Mm-hmm. I'm very rarely, you even know, I gave you a pick today in soccer, but I gave you all the reasons why it might not cash. It's just how I am. But I feel like it's going to be a slow start. I think we're going to see both teams really build into it. I think we might see an under for the first half and then maybe an explosion of points in the second half when Burrow's a little bit more comfortable. We haven't really mentioned it's Stafford's first Super Bowl as well. So he's not going to really have any experience. He's going to be drawing on the experience of the guys around him to kind of coach him in the right direction leading up to the game, during the game. So I think there might be a lot of nerves, and I think McVay, second chance, he's going to want to be aggressive, but he's also not going to want to blow the game either. So it could be a cagey affair to start. Every part of me wants to go with the Bengals just because the last time I talked about the hot hand, the hot team. It doesn't matter what you did to get to the dance, as long as you're at the dance. From there on is what matters to me, especially in the NFL playoffs. So the Bengals coming in, kind of limped in, they win and then they win 3 games. They're a really good football team, and every part of me wants to take them. But I look on the other side of the field and I'm like, man, the Rams have also played really well this playoff, and it's really hard for me to separate right now. But if I'm leaning aside just on the straight money line, I feel like obviously the value is with Cincinnati, but my heart for some reason is telling me the Rams this week, man. I'm finally jumping off the Cincinnati bandwagon. I think, and then another thing, and obviously it's not related, but I kind of buy into this a little bit. Drake put $600,000 on the Rams. That's also weighing on my mind. I'm like, Drake curse. It's a thing. Obviously the Raptors curse, or the Raptors win broke the curse, but I think that's because the whole nation's juju overcame his negative juju, and that's why we won, right? I don't hold him responsible for that. So I definitely I'm thinking about that a little bit. I'm like, Drake curse, baby, Drake curse. But I think I'm going to go with the Rams. I think OBJ is going to have a really big game. I think Cooper Kupp's going to have a really big game. I think Stafford's going to show why a lot of people were saying he was one of the best QBs in the league. He just was in the worst situation possible in Detroit. And then you look on the defensive side of the ball, you have Aaron Donald, Von Miller, Floyd, You have a bunch, Jalen Ramsey, Eric Weddle came out of retirement to play. You have a bunch of playmakers on defense. And the one talking point that everybody consistently has had is how's the offensive line going to hold up against the Rams defensive line? And at the end of the day, I feel like Joe might be running a little bit more than he would like to. I think he's going to be a lot more of a mobile QB in this game. I think he's going to take the yards when he can get them. And I think he's going to try to limit getting hit as infrequently as possible. And I think you're going to see the Rams really try to dial up that pressure.
I agree with you. You know, it's the battle of the trenches, the battle of the lines is really what the storyline is in this game. We have to look at what happened in that Tennessee Titans game for Cincinnati and how many times he got sacked, how much pressure he faced. And now if we compare the pass rush of the Tennessee Titans compared to the pass rush of the Rams, it's almost scary because, Jake, as you pointed out, the Rams have a really good pass rush, way better than the Titans have to offer. And we know what the Titans were able to do to Burrow. That, to me, is the problem. I'll go on record and say, look, I actually think that I think the Rams win the game. And I think Bengals cover the spread, the 4.5. So I think it's a tight one. I don't think either team blows anybody out. I think it can be close. I wanted to save this to the end, but we'll jump into it now just because it made sense for what you were just talking about with the money line with the Bengals. For anybody out there listening that bets on sports, and a lot of our audience and our buddies do, if you're betting on this game and you like the Bengals, you're pretty much a fool if you don't take Joe Burrow to win the MVP versus betting the money line for the Bengals. You can get Joe Burrow to win the MVP at around plus 220, plus 230, or you can get the Bengals money line at plus 190. If the Cincinnati Bengals win the Super Bowl, it's unanimous that Joe Burrow, in my opinion, is winning the MVP. Any arguments there?
No, obviously I feel like that's the logical sense. Even the books are saying, like, if you look at just MVP by position, like the quarterback's the only one that's not plus money. So usually it's a QB. If the QB has a pretty decent game, chances are they are going to win. And Cincinnati's kind of really, ticked off of Joe Burrow, right? When Joe's moving and Joe's got that swagger going, you can see he really pushes his team. So I think you're right. I never really would have thought of something like that, to be honest. And that just kind of shows like your insider perspective as somebody in the industry. For me, like, I would never correlate. Well, I would correlate it, but not in a betting sense that like there's more value on betting Joe Burrow to win the MVP in the sense that if they do win the game, he's going to be MVP and it's just worth more money. So definitely I think a really smart take there, and something that for a lot of like people like me that aren't, I would say full-time bettors wouldn't really think of. But yeah,
would be kind of funny though if like T Higgins just got
something like that. There's always that chance, right? Or like something like, Jamar Chase has a really good game and Joe Burrow has a really good game, but for some reason Zach Taylor decides to throw Jamar Chase on a punt return and he takes it to the house, and like that's the play of the game, right? Like those are the things I feel like you're banking on when you're not betting on a quarterback for the MVP, like those standalone plays where like they're going to be remembered in Super Bowl history. But I definitely think both the quarterbacks for the MVPs are a safe play. And if you wanted to go a little outside the box, maybe look for someone with a little bit more value. Obviously, a lot of people are looking at Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald can be very influential to this game. But somebody I'm looking at, and you might laugh because obviously Cooper Kupp's there, but Odell Beckham Jr., like this is the game that he's been waiting for. Like every person that has ever talked about OBJ just says all this guy wants to do is win. Like he is such a good teammate, but at the end of the day, in his heart, he knows winning comes first. A good teammate comes along with that, with winning. And that's why a lot of people seem to think his situations with the Giants and the Browns really didn't work out for him, because you could see that there were organizations that weren't trending in a winning direction. They were either staying stagnant or getting worse. But I forget what OBJ is coming in at. He must be like plus like something crazy. I'd say over 400 or 500.
Yeah, he's 27-1.
Oh, 27 to 1. 27 to 1. You throw $100 on that, like maybe even $10, like whatever you feel like throwing on it. I feel like that's a really good value bet for the MVP. Obviously, Kupp's the guy, but there's just something about we've been waiting for OBJ to get in a big moment, and like this is it. And I feel like with all the stuff that's gone on, like he is going to take this moment and he's going to be a very influential player on this game. But
that's awesome.
I would say 1, 2, 3. I would say obviously Stafford, Burrow, Donald, and then value. I really like Odell.
Yeah, man, I'm not gonna be able to give out anything that has as much value as that, but for that price, that's pretty awesome because I expect a big game out of Odell. I've been talking up Cooper Kupp all week. The funny thing is, though, I've been talking him up for MVP, but I've also been talking up Odell's receiving yards. So it's kind of funny because you'd think that I would like the Odell MVP as well. The thing is I really believe that a lot of times, like I said with Joe Burrow, when the quarterback, when a team wins the Super Bowl, how often is it anybody else but the quarterback as the MVP? Imagine if Stafford throws 2 picks and doesn't really have his best game, but Cooper Kupp goes for 200 yards and 2 TDs. You know, same thing with Odell. You know what I mean? What if it's a mediocre game from Stafford, but his receivers go off, or if Von Miller or Aaron Donald, get a strip sack and all like those guys make the influential plays, like you said. I heard somebody say Von Miller could you imagine? He's 39-1. Imagine Von Miller for MVP.
He plays a position though on defense that is very much like a Super Bowl MVP position if there was going to be one on defense. Obviously, D tackle is a little bit harder to get. Like Aaron Donald's a freak of nature. Most D tackles don't get sacks like Aaron Donald. Von Miller plays outside linebacker. I think he plays a lot in a 2-point technique, so meaning like he's standing upright. So he's able to rush the passer a lot more fluently and like be able to create those angles for himself coming off the edge where Donald's, basically trying to bully through 1 or 2 guys on the interior of the defense. So I definitely, whoever said that, like I get it. Like it definitely makes sense. Obviously Aaron Donald's the face of the defense, but in a one-off playoff game, like we've seen Von Miller in a playoff performance absolutely cause havoc with the Broncos. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again.
As far as getting into some props and we're talking about value, it's funny because a lot of people that I've talked to in the industry, they say, Jake, the best thing to do in the Super Bowl for props is lay the chalk and bet favorites, which is like, to me, something that you never, ever hear like professional bettors say. Like I know professionals that are laying like minus 300 on stuff that they think should be minus 600, which like I would never do because you got to bet a lot of money to, you know what I mean, make money back in that way. But there's one popular one that I've really liked that's still going down. So if you want to bet this, bet it as soon as you can. Will there be a defensive or special teams touchdown? It's around plus 250 now. And I think yes is a really popular thing. We have seen 8 of the last 15 Super Bowls that's happened. It's happened a lot recent as well. Past couple of years, I think 3 straight Super Bowls. And obviously you think 8 of the last 15, well, that's not very good. But if you're getting plus 250 or better every time, it's a positive expectation bet. And I think that with a pick 6 possible for Stafford, I think with, Burrow getting rocked maybe and fumbling and that goes to the house or something of that nature, I really think it's a possible bet there. And at the value, that's one that I've already bet in myself for a defensive or special teams touchdown.
Very trendy. Very trendy. No, I like it. I would say my best bet for the Super Bowl prop pick, definitely wouldn't say it's necessarily laying the chalk, but for me, it's definitely laying the chalk. We've talked about it numerous times. I'm always looking for value. I'm very rarely betting, minus 130s, minus 140s, but I think Bengals over 0.5 first half field goals. It's minus 145. Nice. Evan McPherson lights out. I don't think necessarily it might be the highest scoring half. So I think both the teams are going to be willing to take points and maybe trade it a field goal or 2 in the first half to prevent a team getting a touchdown. Like be okay, like, we're willing to give up some yards and we're willing to give up maybe a field goal or two in the first half, but we cannot give up a touchdown in the first half, or we cannot give up 2 touchdowns in the first half. And I just like the way the guy's been playing. I think Zach Taylor has ultimate faith in him. So, if it's a 48-yard or a 50-yarder, I think he has no problem trotting him out there. And even if he does miss his first attempt, I don't think that's going to waver his confidence or Zach Taylor's confidence in him. So I think that's a really safe bet. I think it's one that's, I don't want to say 100% lock, but for me,
I like that. I'm taking that. I'm tailing you. I like it.
For me, I really liked it when I saw it. And I thought it was a reasonable price just for how well he's been playing recently and knowing the Bengals aren't scared. I think they're averaging like almost 3 field goal attempts a game throughout the playoffs. Like that's got to be, well, I think it would probably lead the NFL for playoff teams in field goal attempts per game. So I think that's a really safe bet. And I think the Bengals are going to be looking to get on the board early, no matter how it is.
I really like that one. I was going to add on to that. Another bet that I liked was over 7.5 kicking points for Evan McPherson. So I'm jumping on the bandwagon as well with him. And what's cool about that prop is that it's a mixture of field goals and extra points. So, couple of field goals and a touchdown, or, a couple touchdowns and a field goal, that kind of stuff. With the extra points, of course, not going for 2. That's a little bit more chalky, like minus 140 and stuff. But I thought that was pretty cool because, like you just, mentioned about how many times they go for field goals, then plus you get 1 point every time they get the extra point. So yeah, we both talked about Joe Mixon. One that's one of them that I really liked. I mean, 23.5 receiving yards. I like the over in the game, but I expect that because of the amount of pressure he's going to have to deal with, there's going to be a lot of just dump offs, a lot of just short passes from Burrow. Mixon will be that safeguard, the safe guy right there, the comfort blanket, and then we'll see what he can do. And if we get 3 or 4 of those for Mixon, I think that he can. It's 23.5. He needs 24 yards for us, and I believe that not every drive or every possession Burrow will have the opportunity to look down 30 yards for Jamar Chase. He's going to have to get rid of that ball really fast.
Yeah, brother. I'm actually on the over 3.5. So we're thinking similarly, right? We're definitely thinking pressure up the middle, Mixon getting outside the backfield, dump off, see what he does. I went with the 4.5 or 3.5 just because I know the Rams can really rally to the ball. I know tackle for losses definitely possible. I don't really want to bank on Mixon. Obviously, we say 23.5 yards. It's not many, but we've seen that, go under before. I think me and you have bet a Mixon over on receiving yards pretty close to that at some point throughout the season. And it was like 2 yards or 4 yards off or something. But I definitely think he's going to get those touches. I like the over 3.5. I think that's coming in at, I don't even have a price here. So whatever that's coming in at, that's probably coming around, I would say like minus 120, maybe.
I like that.
Maybe even plus 110 if we're getting lucky. You never know. But another thing you talked about, safe blanket. I really think that if Higbee's not playing, Bland anytime touchdown scorer, I think both teams are going to be looking to use their tight ends. They usually run, short to intermediate routes, very, very simple routes 9 times out of 10, just to give the QB an option, dump it off, like you said, to Mixon. I really like Blanton for the Rams if Higbee's not playing. If Higbee's playing and we get confirmation that he is going to be, more than, 25-30% of the snaps, and I'll go with Higbee. But right now, I think Stafford's definitely going to be using his tight ends. I think a lot of emphasis of the defense is going to be focused on stopping guys like Cooper Kupp, OBJ. I think that leaves, Higbee and Blanton, especially in the red zone, viable options on play action, tight end leaking out to a pylon, nice little flat route. Stafford hits him in the chest, and that both of those guys are coming in at plus 225. I think Blanton might be 250, wow. But if Higbee's not playing, then I think Blanton's going to go down to 225, maybe 220. So I think talking about safety blankets, those are those are 2 good picks that I like. Mixon over 3.5 receptions and Blanton or Higbee anytime touchdown scorer.
Awesome, yeah, and great value there for getting in the end zone. I think you and I both like Beckham, Odell Beckham Jr.
Over on everything. Over on everything.
Yeah, I really
touchdown
like him.
Score over 63.5 yards, over on receptions.
Let's go.
Everything for OBJ.
I'm right there with you, man. And one thing I wanted to say too, for Cooper Kupp, for Jamar Chase, prop that I never usually bet. Past couple weeks I've gotten into it. Longest reception. You don't have to worry about what they're doing, and how many yards they get in the whole game. Just longest reception. I feel like Jamar Chase can grab his. Cooper Kupp, he's good for a long one as well. Before we close things out, we got to get some score predictions. I hate doing this. I hate being put on the spot a little bit, but we got to do it. We got to give our score predictions. So, Jake, you called the Bengals upset last week. What's your score prediction here this
Just
week?
before we go here, I got a list. I know we got places to be, but I got a list here of just props. I'm going to read them out really quickly. I'm not going to give you a price, so just move it quick. Just these are the things I like. I like Burrow over 11.5 rushing yards. I like Burrow over 275 passing yards. I said the Bengals over first half field goals, 0.5. I like Higgins anytime touchdown scorer. I like Mixon over 3.5. I like everything for OBJ, absolutely everything. I like the Higbee and Blanton thing, like I said. And I also like Stafford over 24.5 completions. We both think there's going to be a lot of throwing attempts in this game. We both think a lot of offenses are going to be, both the offenses are going to be looking to score points. And then just for a couple jokes, Tails plus 100. McAfee's been talking about it all week. He's got 40,000 on it. Harry's been talking about it in the group chat. So we're definitely going to be all over that. Value bet of the entire Super Bowl. And I don't know how it's like, maybe I haven't been reading about the halftime performance enough to know who's starting the performance, but they've been marketing Dr. Dre as like the centerpiece of it. How isn't California Love the favorite to be the first song played at the halftime show? It's Lose Yourself. And obviously I get it's Eminem. It's a very big hype song, but California Love, it's in California. The Rams are playing. It's plus 750, Andrew. Plus 750.
I know.
Like, obviously,
honestly, like I'm the worst. I feel like I'm just like no fun with some of these because like I haven't looked at a lot of the halftime stuff. Like I had it written down for us to talk about on the podcast, but I'd just be lying if I said that I've done research on some of these, like the halftime one, but that's like good value on it.
I love it. I didn't even really do any research. I was just like, why is California Love plus 750? Like that would have been the song I thought would have been played first without seeing any value. But last two for jokes, Gatorade, green or yellow. I'm getting two for the price of one. It's plus 350. Obviously, blue and orange are going to be the two popular ones, but you know, it's that citrus flavor, nice and refreshing. That's what I'm going with. And then the anthem over. It's a country singer. Country singer is notoriously slow, drawn out, very pronunciated. Definitely over on the anthem. I think it's hit the last couple years. It's usually a pretty safe bet. But yeah,
Jake, there hasn't been an anthem go under 95 seconds since 2012.
Yeah, exactly. So another safe bet. Lock those in. I obviously they're all winners in my opinion, but I'm probably not. I'm probably not going to bet them all. I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm probably not going to bet them all. So whatever you take with a grain of salt. And for my score prediction, I'm going to go 33-30 Rams. I think we're going to see a lot of points. I think we're going to see a pretty slow first half. Maybe I think one team maybe gets out to a little bit of a lead, maybe like a 17-7 lead for a team, 24 points, get us there. Obviously that's pretty good points for the first half. But I definitely think the Rams are going to find a way. I think being there before, I know everybody talks about Joe Shiesty not being caught in the moment, being so young and not really having that fear of anything. But I think a lot of these guys on the Rams know this might be their last opportunity, or they might not get another opportunity like this with this type of team to be able to go out there and win a Super Bowl. So I think I got to ride with the Rams, but I'm a neutral, so I'm going to be just cheering for a good game. And if Joe Burrow wins, it makes me eat my words. Like, I'll be happy. I just want a really good game. I don't want to see a dud.
Yeah, I'll make it very clear. I'm cheering for the Bengals, but I think Rams win this game 27-24. Best bet for me, Joe Mixon, over 23.5 receiving yards. I like OBJ's as well. I love the Evan McPherson kicking prop. There's lots to like in this game. Looking forward to it. Love that recap of all your props, Jake. Even the Gatorade colors. Let's get an over on the anthem. We'll make some money before the game is even over.
It's going to hit. And the Tails. The Tails is going to hit. I don't know why. Everybody's been vibing. Everybody's been vibing with Tails, bro. Everybody I've talked to has been vibing with Tails. So we're gonna literally group bet as a bunch of degenerates on Tails.
Because Tails never fails.
Exactly. You got to go with it.
Let us know below if you're watching on Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube who you're taking, what your picks are, what your prop picks are. And hey, we'll give you some shout outs if you're correct on some of your picks. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time.